ABC's The Conners may make a splash at the Emmys later this year after a very successful and well-received first season as ABC's highest-rated comedy. Co-creator and executive producer Bruce Helford joins us for today's chat. I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby, which pulls the predictions of experts and thousands of fans just like you. Bruce, welcome to today's chat.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Now, mate, before we move on and talk about, all the really great things about the Conners this past first season, and without having to belabor the point too much, because I think it's been ventilated to death, take us back to the day after that infamous tweet by Roseanne, and when it all just kind of led to that very decisive action by ABC to kill off the Roseanne reboot.
Well, I think more interesting is the actual day that it happened, because that was our first day that the writing staff was getting together to start working on the second season of the reboot. And so all of a sudden I wake up, I've got, 200 texts, maybe 50 emails. And I'm like, what happened? What did I miss? I found out what happened. I went down to the office and all the writers were there, all these new writers we had hired and assembled for this new gig. And I said, guys, listen, we don't know what's going to happen. I think we're going to take a little breather for a couple days and see what. And as I'm talking, someone leans over my shoulder and whispers, and I go, okay, we're all going home or canceled. So literally, we had a big plate of there was like cold cuts and sandwiches, kind of a welcoming thing. I think there was a big box of cookies from ABC welcoming us back, which we all just kind of picked apart and went home.
Wow. I mean, I thought it was most unfortunate that the show was actually really delivering, and both commercially and also in terms of its quality, and then it just went off a cliff. And I'm wondering what you felt about that, because it must have been devastating, but I think you probably also understood where the network might have been coming from. So what did you have a conflicting stuff in your head going on at the time?
Well, the conflicting is obviously we were really proud of the work we did, and it was all very confusing because Roseanne had been great to work with that season. I don't follow her Twitter. I don't know what she was doing there. But as far as for us in the trenches of doing the show, it was great, collaborative and having a good time and really proud of the work. So my first feeling was, why, why no? And then and it will take better people and experts than me to understand why. But I do understand the network felt they had taken action. So my next thought was immediately, I've now got 300 people out of work. I'm about to lose my directors and most of my writers, which actually we lost some of them. But my first thought was how do we somehow salvage what's going on here? Because we have a great show. We have 4 other cast members who potentially could be the leads of their own shows. Is there not something in who this family is? It was a beloved show. The family was beloved, not just Roseanne. Of course, she was beloved and beloved by the family and by the viewers. And we thought, okay, is there something? But the first thing we thought of was, when we talked about it, is it had to be honest to what happened, because there were all kind of pitches to just say she's gone, or say she went on a boat somewhere, or just move away. And we were like, no, this family has to be allowed to move on in order for we're going to have a show where the characters are allowed to grow. They can't have her waiting in the wings to come back. And also something obviously ABC didn't want. But also, it really required us taking a very honest look at what would happen if the mother in that family died unexpectedly. And we had to, and our bond with our audience is the honesty and realism of that show. And like most sitcoms, it doesn't veer from real. And so we embarked upon something different, something very different, but something very satisfying. And thankfully, the audience was there for us.
They absolutely were, and as talking as a fan myself, there was a lot of apprehension from me, even thinking, "What are they? Is this going to happen? Are they going to pull it off?" And you really did, and which is credit to you and the whole team. But I'm really curious, because I didn't really follow the machinations behind the scenes as to what was going on. How did it really actually come about? What was the discussion had between the team and ABC about actually doing this and actually having a go and seeing if it will work?
It wasn't that complicated in that ABC and we felt also terrible about the fact that you had this incredible cast of characters who are now going to be set adrift You're going to lose them. You're going to lose this incredible group of writers. You're just going to, it was all going to just kind of be flushed away with this one action. And so after the dust settled a bit, there were conversations about what would go forward. And then Bruce Rasmussen, one of the other executive producers, and Dave Kaplan and I and Tom Werner and Sarah Gilbert went into ABC to repitch what the show would be, because couldn't just say, well, we're just going to continue from there. They really needed to know what, like they had concerns about what could this possibly look like without the lead character. And it's never really been done successfully. I know the Hogan Family was a show that tried to move on after their star left the show and all that, but this is a really radical move. And we I think pitched a very viable show, obviously, and so we just said, let's move forward and let's get these people back to work. And we were able to rehire a good 70% of the people. So, and the other ones got jobs, so thank God. So we were happy about that. But our focus was getting everybody back to work and not squandering an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I think that that was really key. You know, when you look at the two shows, to me, there's a lot of similarities. I feel like I'm pretty much almost watching the same show, obviously without Roseanne Barr at the center of it. Do you think, though, that there were any particular other differences that you decided to put into the new show to kind of give it its own voice, or did you just want to continue what you thought was already a good thing?
Well, we had to stay honest to what the characters were already going through. So in that sense, that the characters' thread of their lives was continuing. A little bit of the difference of this is was it the Seven Samurai that did it all from everybody's point of view? The same story, but everybody had a different point of view about it. No, that was Magnificent Seven. There's another famous Kurosawa film where it explores the other points of view of people who went under when there was a gang of bandits and they robbed a group of people, and everyone had a different remembrance of what it was. And I think that this was now a way of looking at all the mirrors and seeing the perspective, because we were really able to go into depth into the character of Darlene and Dan in ways, they would defer to the matriarch. And so this is the first time that we were really inside their heads. The show was being shown from their point of view. It was always from Roseanne's point of view. One of the mandates for that show was whatever story there was, Roseanne had to be key in that story. That's the secret to that show. And so this was a very different undertaking. It was going to be various members, a true ensemble, but really getting inside who these people were. We certainly explored Jackie to greater depths, and Darlene and Lee and Becky and Dan for sure. We went into places where you wouldn't have normally gone with them and explored who they are as people and how they react and what their loves, drives, wants, needs are beyond this moment. So it was very different in that respect. We had to figure out what would have been going on with, now you remove the center and see where the orbits go.
Yeah, and yet the show still tackles the same interesting and relevant themes while also being so genuinely funny. Like, so in season one of this new iteration, you talk about the opioid crisis and poverty and healthcare and immigration, and I mean even the final episode it's like, it just really delivers on those relevant themes. But I found myself laughing at the whole thing. How difficult, though, is it to be funny while also trying to be relevant?
It's a long time ago. I sat down with the head of ABC at the time, back in '92, and we were about to embark on an episode where Jackie's boyfriend abused her. Yeah. And domestic abuse is a big issue in this country. And he said, it's gonna hurt the show. It's too dark. And I said, I can promise you this: it will be as funny as it is terrifying. And that's really what it is. The audience, when you present a situation that's intense, the audience is dying to laugh, and you can explode that tension. And that's what the best movies, the best films do, the best writing, the best theater, is you create tension to the point where the audience needs that release, and then you give them that release. And so in dealing with relevant situations, we only applied them as how they would affect this family. It's because we're not looking to be a political voice. We're not looking to have an agenda of any sort. But right now, we're in a very politicized time, and a working class family is at the heart of that politicization, what's that word? Yeah. And so we really were just doing things as it would affect them, how immigration would affect Dan's job, We're having an influx of illegal immigrant workers, all those things. So we were able to tackle those things, but we tackled them honestly, trying to present both sides as honestly as possible, no straw villains. And then when things really got to the heat, then let the audience laugh. We laugh at ourselves. We laugh at our crazy, what we consider important. We laugh at the views we take of the world, because we're in a pretty absurd universe right now,
We
and we
certainly,
have been for a long,
and
forever
yeah,
probably.
we certainly are. You know, the way I just think back to the old Roseanne show, and for example, when Jackie and Roseanne's father passes away, their abusive father. That's one of the funniest episodes of all comedies of all time. When Jackie's trying to explain to her aunt what's going on at the funeral.
That's
So
my. I'm gonna take credit for that. That was
yeah.
my joke, and
Oh,
that was one of
yeah.
the funniest things that I've ever. But it was really Laurie. Laurie made that so amazing. That's one of the biggest and longest laughs I've ever heard on the stage. Because he's dead.
Yeah,
Dead.
yeah, dead. No,
Wonderful. But
dead.
it was a very intense show. But again, people, everyone's experiencing that, and if you don't have the humor, it's just too hard to get through.
True. And I think what you're doing really, a lot of people have mentioned this about your show, is this working class empathy. That's where I think you guys hit it like right on point. It's just, there's nothing else like it. Um, Coupled with that is the political stuff that we saw, especially in that first season of the Roseanne reboot. We didn't see a lot of it this time, as much as that first few episodes where Jackie's wearing the pink hat. I'm wondering if you're going to go back to that stuff, because I mean, I personally loved it. But I don't know whether you really just want to make the show just all about Trump all the time. But will you be doing stuff like that more?
It was only important in the first episode in the Roseanne reboot because we wanted to establish where the characters were at, how Jackie and Roseanne had gotten into their fray. Roseanne wanted to have a character that represented that because she was presenting all this evidence that a lot of the people, we looked at the demographics, and a lot of the people who lived in that area, which is basically, it's supposed to be Elgin, it's Lanford, but it's supposed to be Elgin, Illinois. It's based on Elgin. A lot of people in that area went from voting for Bill Clinton to voting for Trump. They didn't vote for Hillary, and she felt that was a voice that needed to be spoken for, and agreed to make it fair, even despite whatever her personal views were. We would balance it out. But once we got that first episode going, if you watch the episodes, it really doesn't happen much in the other episodes, except as it affects the family. If something about the administration were to really be pertinent to what is going on with the Connors' lives, we'd get into it.
Yeah, and that's what we're maybe hoping to see. So do you think that this whole Roseanne debacle is really behind you now? Because apart from having to talk about it in interviews, do you find that it ever comes up on set or in the writer's room anymore? Do you think you're ready just to put it behind you and move forward as a completely new thing?
We never forget her involvement. We never forget what she started. We will probably mention her. I don't, again, what family stops
Yeah.
talking about the mother? So there will probably still be mention of it. I think what we may be hopefully past is the division that people felt about her not continuing or continuing. So I think that's been, I think, more accepted now, and people can just watch the show and judge it on its own merit. So that would be great, and that's what we hope for. We're just going to continue. All we can do really is just write the episodes that we believe in and write as hard as we can. I've never worked harder on a show in my entire 30 some odd years in this business than I have on this show. It requires the best of what you can do, and it requires you to never slack and use an easy joke or an unsatisfying moment because you just because no one ever says in that room, hey, it's just a TV show. We don't. It's not brain surgery, but it's not just a TV show. It's a very special TV show.
Absolutely. And just speaking of judging it on its own merits, I hope, the TV Academy and other awards giving groups realize that the show is really kicking goals without having to worry about the debacle that happened a year ago. And I particularly think about the cast. Like, does it ever cease to amaze you, the performances that people like Laurie Metcalf, John Goodman, Sarah Gilbert, and for me in particular, I think Lisa Goranson was such a standout in the season. Well, what are your thoughts on their performances?
It's it's so, what do you call it? It's more than amazing. I've never had a cast where it literally is anyone. You can go to anyone for a home run. You can go to anyone for an honest moment. You can go to anyone to evoke tears or laughter, and they're all amazing. The scene in the final episode where Laurie's the lunchbox, what used to be the lunchbox, and just goes off the rails. Just was amazing. It was as good as any moment I've ever seen in a play. I mean, she was just so there. She opened a vein, in front of the audience. That's a really hard thing to do. John Goodman, when Dan is meeting Katie Segal and he realizes she's actually interested in dating him, and how difficult that was for him, and all those moments, the caliber of actor really pushes the caliber of the writing. They give us more than we even dreamed to see. So it's like they're just amazing, and I do hope the Academy recognizes that. There's always been a bit of a bias toward blue collar shows. They don't usually get as much attention. They don't have the cachet that, say, a New York show has or whatever. But I believe that that people are watching, and I think they're seeing, that there's something special is being done, and should recognize it.
Yeah, I mean, you of all people should know that that bias against blue collar shows happened all throughout the Roseanne show. It was the best show on TV, and just didn't get the love that it should have gotten in some of those seasons, right? It's a bit annoying.
Yeah, no, the what do you call it? The season that I ran at 92, 93, she got her Emmy.
Yeah, yeah.
She got her one Emmy. I think Laurie had won a couple of Emmys, but no, the show should have won for best show. There's no doubt in my mind it was the best show on the air.
Yeah.
But again, it's just, it doesn't have, for whatever reason, there's a bit of a snobbery. Now, maybe not so much anymore, but there was definitely a snobbery back then. It was, the joke we used to make is, and for every award, and the award goes to Frasier. It wouldn't matter what the award was. And the award for best blue collar comedy goes to Frasier.
Yeah. Yeah.
The award for best female actress goes to Frasier.
Frasier. Yeah. And you could even say it now. I totally get it. So look, ABC recently renewed the show for a second season. Was that a nervous wait, or were you confident that was happening?
We believed it would happen. They really, ABC wanted us to give them as many episodes as we possibly could. Laurie had commitments on Broadway, and everybody had certain things. So we wanted to do it very badly. We all wanted to do it again. The experience was so wonderful. But it took time to just make all the deals, make sure everybody could be available, to do the maximum number, which is going to be 13. And it worked out. You're always nervous because anything can happen, but we really felt good about it, and the numbers were justified. I guess with the DVR +7, we got 10 million viewers a week. That's something you have to keep on the air.
Oh, totally. That doesn't happen anymore. That's incredible numbers for this day and age. Yeah. I'm sorry to be very selfish, but I missed the days of the 22 episode season. I know you guys are working so hard, but after 11 episodes, I was like, is that it? Is that all I get?
Well, if they, there's always a possibility. It depends on everybody's schedule that there'll be a back order. If they do, we'll approach that. We'll go to the gang and we'll say, do you have the available space to do this? And if they do, then every year it's going to be a labor of love, because we aren't. It isn't like we're doing a multi-year contract. What we're doing is everybody's saying, I want to do this now. It feels good. It feels right. We're all in, and then we'll do it again next year, and we'll all say, how do you feel? I'm all right. We'll go. But it's really a labor of love. It's a very unique situation.
Yeah. And so in a few words, because we're running out of time, what's in store for the Connors next season? Do you have anything planned up your sleeve?
Well, there's certain things. Well, you hear, the threads that are coming is Becky's going to have a baby. Darlene's got to decide between Ben and David. Dan is starting to get into the universe of potentially dating. Lisi, I mean, everybody's lives are up, and Jackie has got some big things to face after what she went through. She has to kind of put the pieces all back together. So it's going to be probably one of our most dramatic and one of our funniest seasons ever. Oh. We're not settling for anything. There's no status quo, and we're going to be surprising people pretty good.
Oh, I can't wait. Thanks very much, Bruce, and good luck at this year's Emmys. Everybody hit the like button to subscribe to our Gold Derby channel, and be sure to click on our interviews throughout our Emmy playlist. Thanks, everybody.